Hello and good afternoon here on this Friday. We are glad you are listening to the Blitz. Welcome into this edition of the Blitz as we prepare for a huge Saturday in college football. We did a college football preview yesterday and a fantasy football preview a couple days before. But I wanted to do a quick little preview of the Georgia-Ole Miss game. I think it's a good one. I'll tell you why. Hang tight. Thanks for listening to the Blitz today. All right. Georgia versus Ole Miss. This game is intriguing to me on many levels, and I want you to know why. Georgia, 3-0 football team. 3-0 football team playing a 1-2 Ole Miss football team. And if I told you you got a football team that's ranked 12th in the country, they're 3-0, they're playing a noon game, it's on the road, but they're playing a noon game against a 1-2 team, in Ole Miss that's ranked, what are they ranked? 23rd. Ranked 23rd in the country, 1-2. You would say, no-brainer. No-brainer. This is easy. Well, it's not that easy. Ole Miss is favored 75% to 25% chance for the Bulldogs to win this game. And for good reason. Ole Miss has played two high-powered offenses. I guess Alabama could be considered a high-powered offense. But regardless, they've played two quality football teams in Florida State to start the season and Alabama last week. And both times they were ahead on these two teams by 22 points. 21 points, maybe it was. And they let it slip away. But this is a good Ole Miss football team, and Georgia has had some serious struggles. Now, get this stat right here, though, too. Now, Ole Miss is a good football team, okay? They have one of the best quarterbacks in the country in Chad Kelly, and he can do a lot of things. He can throw the football. He can run the football. He makes plays. He's considered a dual-threat quarterback, and he'll definitely be playing on Sundays. There's no doubt about that. But get this stat right here. Ole Miss hasn't beaten Georgia since 1996. However, the FPI on ESPN gives the Rebels a 75% chance to win at home this Saturday. Despite blowing 21-point leads against Florida State and Alabama, so it was 21, not 22, excuse me. The Rebels still ranked 13th in FPI. So this is this insulting to a Georgia football team that's 3-0? Is it? I don't think so. I think that Ole Miss should be favored in this game, and I think Georgia would be lucky if they stay within a 14-point window. And Ole Miss is a very good team. They played two quality opponents, and they played much tougher competition than the Georgia Bulldogs have. The Georgia Bulldogs started the season off by playing a North Carolina team that many people had competing in the ACC. However, Georgia was able to put up 222 yards on the ground with their star running back Nick Chubb, and Eason was able to throw the ball a little bit too. And the Bulldogs kept North Carolina from doing what North Carolina does best, and that's throwing the ball downfield and making big plays. The Bulldogs rallied in that game after being down by 10 points, coming back out and winning this game by 9 points against North Carolina. The following week, Georgia plays a Nicholls State team that's only won 9 games in the last 4 years and struggled with them. Only beat Nicholls State by 2 points at home. Okay, say, well, that was because they were looking ahead to their first SEC opener against a Missouri team that's maybe not so good. However, they go into Missouri last week on the road, night game, first SEC road start, first SEC game for Jacob Eason, the true freshman quarterback for Georgia, highly recruited, the number 1 recruit in America last year. Great quarterback so far. We've seen some good play out of this kid, and we think he has a bright future. But this kid comes on the road on a 4th and 10 pass, beats Missouri, scores a touchdown on 4th and 10, and then Missouri turned the ball over. Georgia forced a turnover to really ice the game. But if I told you that a team that had 5 turnovers given to them, that forced 5 turnovers, only won by 1 point, that would blow your mind. 5 turnovers, and Georgia had to have a 4th and 10 prayer to win the game. Georgia does not look good, despite their 3-0 victory. A win is a win, and you got to be happy with the win regardless of how you look. But this game against Ole Miss, going to have to look much better. Hard for me to believe that Georgia can improve drastically in 1 week after what we've seen the first 3. So let's just point to this North Carolina game, because I think if you are totally against what I'm saying right now and you're like, Georgia's going to have a chance to win this thing, and why are you putting them down? They're 3-0. They can beat Ole Miss. Let me tell you why. Let's go back to maybe the best that Georgia had looked all year, which was this opening game, when many had them picked to win the East after beating North Carolina. They ran the ball well. They ran the ball well on North Carolina. Keep in mind, North Carolina has possibly one of the worst rush defenses in the entire country. They did last year, and they do this year so far. Georgia has not been able to run the ball since that game. Nick Chubb, who had 222 yards in the first game against North Carolina, now only has an average of 53 yards per game. That's against Nicholls State and Missouri. They're going to be playing an Ole Miss team that is very angry, an Ole Miss team that has to have a win. They're up against the wall. They're playing at home. They've blown 2 21-point leads against top 5 opponents. And Georgia can't run the ball, and they have a freshman quarterback. And they've squeaked by two teams where one of those teams is absolutely maybe one of the worst programs in the country, and the other that I don't think is. How can I say this without offending Missouri fans? Missouri is not going to win the SEC. They're not even going to compete. They're not bad. They can throw the ball. I like Drew Lock's arm. And I like Missouri's receivers. Missouri's defensive line, not bad at all. They've always had a good defensive line. But they're not that good of a team. Nothing like a Tennessee or a Florida or an Ole Miss or an Alabama. I would say you could put Missouri on that, maybe just slightly above South Carolina. But they're not as good as Arkansas. They're not as good as A&M. They're not as good as Tennessee. They're not as good as Florida. They're not as good as Alabama. They're not as good as Ole Miss. They're about right on par with Georgia. Got to give Georgia the edge, I guess, because they won this game. But in the next 2 weeks, Georgia is going to be playing Ole Miss and Tennessee. It just continues to get harder from here. I'm very concerned if I'm a Georgia Bulldog right now because of the offensive line, because of the run game, which has everything to do with the offensive line, with the receiving core. We have some issues in the secondary. Don't let the turnovers fool you. We are definitely on the positive when it comes to the turnover side, but we are still nowhere where we need to be on that end. So, very concerned about Georgia. They have some issues. Got to work it out. I love what I'm seeing out of Jacob Eason, but we beat Missouri last week throwing the ball 55 times to the same guy practically. I mean, there were just a couple of guys that had other catches. You had Christian Payne had a catch. Michael Chigbu, I think, had one catch. Jeb Blazevich had a catch. But Isaiah McKenzie was the guy that just continued to get open. And this guy's 175 pounds, and he's about 5'9", and you're not going to win football games all year relying on that. So your freshman quarterback is going to have to continue to grow, which I think he will, and I think he's such a bright future. He has such a bright future with Georgia, and Georgia fans need to be very excited about what the future holds. Because I think with Jacob Eason and getting the defensive players that Kirby Smart wants in there, Georgia's definitely should win. It should be the favorite in the East in the coming years with the chance to win a national title. But we got to think about right now, the here and now, and this year, Georgia's got some major problems playing against a very good 1-2 Ole Miss team. And that sounds ridiculous, but yes, Ole Miss is very good. They are super talented all across the board, and you're gonna see it. They're gonna let out all this frustration. This is gonna be the easiest team that they've faced since week 2 against Wolford, who they beat 38-13. But that's the lowest amount of points that they've put up all year long. That's it. 38 points. Georgia, on the other hand, let's go take a look at Georgia here. 33 points against UNC. That's the most they've scored. UNC put up 24 points on them. Nicholls State scored 26. Nicholls State put up 24 on them. Missouri scored 28. Missouri put up 27 on them. Keep in mind, Ole Miss has scored no less than 38 points. I'm sorry, and I hate to say this, but Georgia fans ain't going to be happy on Saturday. All right? They're not going to be happy. Ole Miss is going to run away with this game. And I think saying 75% is actually quite generous. I'm taking Ole Miss to win this game, guys. And it's not happy. I'm a Georgia fan. I love my Georgia Bulldogs. But I'm also going to be realist and not biased. And I'm going to just tell you right now that Ole Miss is going to beat Florida. Or Georgia. All right. Now, if Georgia pulls this out, look out, because the confidence would be out of the roof. If Georgia can pull this out, the confidence would be absolutely out the roof. There's no doubt about that. All right, so look for this game to be a really good one. I think that there's a lot of good football too on Saturday. The next game that I would take us to here, and I talked about this yesterday, but I never made a pick on the Tennessee-Florida game in Knoxville, 3:30 Eastern on CBS. This game, man, you look at this Florida defense, and it is a ferocious defense. There's no doubt. This is a ferocious defense. They play hard. And I love what Greg McElroy and David Pollack have to say about this defense. And it's simple. They don't like people. They don't like people. They want to whip people's rear ends. That's what they want to do. They just want to beat you to the ground. That's what they like doing, beating people into the ground. And so when I'm looking at a Florida team like this going up against a subpar Tennessee program right now, or Tennessee team, I think the program is actually trending up from what we've seen the last few years. But there's no doubt that this Florida team could eat Tennessee for lunch defensively. The only kicker is that Tennessee has to have the game. They don't have a choice here. Tennessee doesn't have a choice. Butch Jones doesn't have a choice. They got to win it. They got to win it, and they can't wait. They can't wait. They got to win now. So I'm running through this game right here, and I'm going to say that you need to keep an eye out and watch this Florida defense, because this Florida defense is ferocious. They love to hit. They love to hurt. They're good. I didn't make a pick yesterday. I got to make one today. I got to make a pick today. I don't have a choice. I got to do it today. And I think my pick might surprise you. All right? So I'm looking at this game, looking at this series, actually. Let's take the series as a whole. It's been 11 years since Tennessee has beaten Florida. Last year, they had them down 14 or 13 and blew that lead in the fourth quarter. The year before, they lost by 1 point. Tennessee has outplayed Florida the last 2 years. They've outplayed them. So, this year, Florida coming in, they're asking, have you ever seen a duck pull a truck? Have you ever seen a duck pull a truck? That's the question Florida's asking these volunteers. I don't even know what the heck that means, if you want to know the truth. Doesn't matter. I am picking the Tennessee Volunteers to win this game. The first time in 11 years, snapping that win streak of the Florida Gators. I think Tennessee is more mature now. Last year, they blew it. The year before, they blew it. They've outplayed Florida 2 years in a row. This year, it's at home. Coaching career on the line. Legacy game for the head coach of Tennessee. Tennessee can't let this one go, guys. They can't let it go. If they do, we might be in trouble down in Knoxville. Butch Jones might be in trouble down in Knoxville. I think Tennessee takes the cake, and I think it's going to be a close one, though. It always is. But I think Tennessee wins this game by 6 points at home, and the crowd goes crazy, and Butch Jones is fired up, and all the fans love him. And then he's going to get into Athens, where are they hyped up? Are they emotional after this game when they play Georgia? Whew, only time will tell. We'll talk about that one next week. So the next game on the list, and this is the last game that we're going to cover today, is Texas A&M playing Arkansas in Jerry's World. Saturday night, this game comes on at 9 Eastern, I believe. Let's check it out. Comes on at 8 Eastern. No. 9 Eastern. 8 Central. My computer's on Central Time. This is a good game. And these are two teams that are playing pretty well. I really like what Brett Bielema does. I think he runs the pro-style offense. He does a really good job at it. He runs the football. Maybe they're not running the ball the way that we've seen Arkansas run the ball in the past. But he's a very good coach. I like what he's doing. And I think he's got his team ready. I think he's going to play physical, and I think this is going to be a really good game. Texas A&M playing awesome football. Trevor Knight, man, he's doing his thing. We knew that A&M could be a sleeper. Everybody knew that, and I had them preseason challenging Alabama in the West. Well, let's see. If I'm being honest, I had them challenging LSU and Alabama in the West, but now I think it's pretty clear LSU maybe not who they should be or who we thought they were. But so right now I've got A&M challenging Alabama in the West. They're playing really good football, and I'm going to take the Aggies in this game. Number 10 Aggies playing Arkansas, number 17 Arkansas. The way that A&M's playing right now, I'm going to take them. But I think this game might be the best game of the weekend, other than the Florida-Tennessee game, because you got just two teams ready to fight and play in this game. A&M owns this series. They own this series right now. And Arkansas better get the ball rolling because A&M is going to just overtake them if we're not careful. That's those are the games today. I wish we could have gotten more in depth on this Arkansas A&M game, but just watch the game. It's going to be fantastic. I think you're going to really enjoy it, but you can't miss that Tennessee-Florida game. Bulldog fans, I'm sorry that I had to rag on you today, but Ole Miss just might walk all over us. Thanks for listening to this edition of the Blitz. We'll see you next week. Enjoy your football this weekend, folks. Take it easy.